Hi there, booktube. It's Russell. Welcome to the Reading Fabricator, and today I'm going to do a rereading review of Don DeLillo's The Silence. Now, I read this back when it came out in 2020, and at the time, I claimed that while it was not great, it was still the best thing he had done in years. After rereading this, I can safely say that I was correct. It was true. At least what I have read of his post-Underworld. I mean, when you look at things like The Body Artist and Cosmopolis and The Point Omega, I did not get on well with it, with the structure, with the style of writing. I didn't like the trajectory he was going forward with after Underworld. It's just his writing became more minimalist, more, I don't know if abstract is the right word for it, but there was just something a little off with how he was going about his idea. He was certainly more about ideas than he was about producing fluid writing. The Body Artist in particular, I think, is his low point, especially when it came directly after Underworld. I mean, he had no chance of coming up with something good coming after that book. Although Cosmopolis, I have been meaning to get around to reread because for some reason I just have this hankering to maybe I just didn't get it, but I think I might like it a lot more. Point Omega I can just leave. Although people have told me that 0K is actually pretty good. And I've always wanted to read Falling Man. I read probably a passage of it and I can't find the book anywhere, so I have to re-get it. But I will read Falling Man. But as for The Silence, I think it might be the shortest of his books. I think it might be even shorter than The Body Artist, and that's a short book too. But I read this in one sitting, and you can do it too. I mean, it's got pages like that, so it's all mostly dialogue. I mean, this could almost be a play. It has only like a few locations going on throughout the book, and it involves just a handful of characters. The five core characters is two married couples and a student, or a former student of a physics professor. A lot of it takes place on a plane and when they get off the plane, and a majority of it takes place in a Manhattan apartment. So it's very slim pickings, but you can get through it, and I think the ideas in this book are exemplary. I think I hate to use this term because people use it all the time when it comes to Delillo, but prescient. His ideas are prescient. He seems to have a way of knowing the future, of being able to predict things, of scaring you basically with the thoughts that come into his head. In particular with his short story that he published decades ago, Human Moments in World War III, which I still maintain to this day is the best thing he has ever written. Needless to say, getting back to The Silence, published in 2020, and it takes place in 2022. So basically this year. And it takes place during the Super Bowl. And in the Manhattan apartment, we've got the couple, Diane and Max. And Diane's former physics student, I think his name is Martin. And they're just sitting around in the apartment waiting for the Super Bowl to begin. Max is just sitting there in the chair, just staring at the screen, watching the commercials, waiting for the opening kickoff. Meanwhile, and this is the start of the book, on a plane coming back from Paris to Newark, New Jersey, you have Jim and Tessa, who are flying along, and they seem to have this almost obsessive type dialogue with numbers, calculations, altitude, the height of the airplane, temperature, Celsius. In fact, there's a lot of obsessive themes going on throughout this short book. In fact, I'm going to call it a novella because I don't think this is a novel. This is more of a novella. But what happens is suddenly the plane starts shaking. He doesn't know what's going on, but the book cuts off before you see anything else. And it opens up with the Manhattan apartment of the three characters I just mentioned, waiting for the Super Bowl. And just before it's about to kick off, the screen turns blank. They don't know what's going on. It's just grey screen. So they freak out a little bit. Then they go to check their phones and their laptops, and they find out that all technology just ceased to cooperate. Technology went dark. And what you find out is you don't know what is causing this. You don't know the main reason behind what is happening. But it's not just this technology, it's streetlights outside. It is everything that is exposed in the city. All of it has gone dark. It will not work. And I like the ideas. I've read up on a few theories about this, and the ideas that are going around that maybe it was, a solar flare that caused technology to go dark. I mean, you won't find out because there could be a nuclear attack on the other side of the country, but they won't find out because technology is dark. So you just have to go with what you believe. So I find that quite fascinating, that there are multiple theories and ideas behind what could cause technology to go dark. I like the solar flare theory. I think that's quite interesting. It's kind of like when I read The Road by McCarthy, and one of the people from the Santa Fe Institute said that he came up to him and asked him about the extinction of the dinosaurs and how the asteroid that hit the Earth affected extinction. And that kind of came to play with how The Road went about with the whole post-apocalyptic themes. I quite like that as well. But that's a sidetrack. So eventually, Jim and Tessa, you find out that the plane does crash land, but they're okay. Jim's got a little cut in his forehead, so they go to get it stitched up, and they're walking through the streets, and it's just nothing's going on. They come across one guy who's got all this stuff in a trolley, and it's just empty streets everywhere. They do eventually make it to the apartment, I believe, and they end up having a meal. And everyone's just sort of pondering. There's a lot of pontificating going on, particularly from Martin, who likes to stand by the window and go on and on about Madame Curie and Einstein, and the fact that Einstein said that we will not know what World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. Something along those lines there, which gives you the idea that humanity will eventually obliterate itself. So there's talks of potentially a nuclear attack, and then world war is kicked off, or at least what they think. So with the writing itself, it is dialogue heavy. So as I said, this book could almost be read like a play. It's just so much dialogue. So that's how I envisioned it when I read it as well. I was sitting there just watching this apartment scene on a stage, and these characters just talking over one another. Or not really talking over one another, but rather just pontificating their own thoughts. There is one hilarious moment where Max, who's starved for this Super Bowl, eventually just narrates his own game, and he's going around the apartment saying, he catches the ball, he throws the ball, almost a touchdown. So that's quite clever as well. I like the idea that there's also this idea of being just almost obsessed with technology, that how we thrive on it, and how some people can live without it and some people just really need to get on living. So there's a little bit of that going on, and the book ends on a bit of not quite a down note, but you don't find out what happens. There is no ending here. It just ends. It ceases to exist. You never find out what happens with technology and why everything went dark. There is one particularly interesting and sinister moment where they hear these shapes appear on the screen, and they hear this voice, this language, but they can't tell what language it is. They don't know if it's Chinese or Arabic or Russian. So little hints are pointed at and given to you here and there, but you're never quite sure. Now with Delillo, I have said plenty of times before in the past that I'm a bit mixed on him, but about 7 months ago I read Mao 2 and quite enjoyed it actually. I really liked it. His thoughts and ideas and his way of articulating terrorism, which is what that whole book's about, is really, really good. I really fell for it. Even though I found certain parts of Mao 2 to be better than others, although I found the opening section where there's this religion, based on a true religion actually, where masses of people went inside the Yankee, I think it was the Yankee Stadium, and all got married off to a partner. I can't remember what religion it was, but meanwhile, one of the girls who's getting married off, her parents are in the stands just watching, and they're trying to find where she is. That to me is a very, very good, one of the highlights of Delillo's writing, I think, up there with the baseball scene out of Underworld. Truly fantastic writing. He has his way of incorporating sports into his work, if you haven't noticed. Sports and terrorism just seem to always be in the mix with a lot of Delillo's work, and movies as well. When he's at his best, I think he's untouchable. He's a bit more prolific than, say, Thomas Pynchon or Cormac McCarthy. And so that means that there is a higher chance for hit and miss, and he does hit and miss. But when he swings for the fences, he swings big. So I'll give him that. I'm shocked that this is the lowest rated book of his on Goodreads. It has something like a 2.5 stars out of 5. I don't quite understand that logic behind it. I really don't. Maybe people are just not getting it, or they expected something different, or maybe it's because when the book was released, there was this huge press thing going on about how one of America's greatest writers has released a book, and most of these people picked it up not having read Delillo before and picked this up as their starting point. I don't think this is probably the best place to start with. If I had to choose, I would go with his short story collection, The Angel Esmeralda, or even Mel too, because that incorporates a lot of what he exemplifies throughout his body of work. But as it stands, this to me is a good read. I think it's worth the time. It is worth probably the one sit that you'll get through this. And I really like this hardcover edition as well. It's my only hardcover edition by Delillo. A lot of the other books have got that standard. I think it's the Picador one, where it's very minimalist type of graphic design work. But I really like this, and there's a good audiobook out there too, where they brought in different actors for different characters. So if you're not into reading and would rather listen to it, then that's a pretty damn good audiobook as well. So give that a go. Before we wrap things up, I thought I'd read to you from my favourite section of the book. This is from part 2, the beginning of part 2. I think it gives you an idea of what Delillo is getting at. It is clear by now that the launch codes are being manipulated remotely by unknown groups or agencies. All nuclear weapons worldwide have become dysfunctional. Missiles are not soaring over oceans, bombs are not being dropped from supersonic aircraft. But the war rolls on and the terms accumulate. Cyber attacks, digital intrusions, biological aggressions, anthrax, smallpox, pathogens, the dead and disabled, starvation, plague, and what else? Power grids collapsing, our personal perceptions sinking into quantum dominance. Are the oceans rising rapidly? Is the air getting warmer, hour by hour, minute by minute? Do people experience memories of earlier conflicts, the spread of terrorism, the shaky video of someone approaching an embassy, a bomb vest strapped to his chest, pray and die, war that we can see and feel? Is there a shred of nostalgia in these recollections? People begin to appear in the streets, warily at first, and then in a spirit of release. Walking, looking, wondering, women and men, an incidental cluster of adolescents, all escorting each other through the mass insomnia of this inconceivable time. And isn't this strange that certain individuals have seemed to have accepted the shutdown, the burnout? Is this something that they've always longed for, subliminally, subatomically? Some people, always some, a minuscule number among the human inhabitants of planet Earth, third planet from the sun, the realm of mortal existence. That to me is the best passage in the whole book, and I think it's phenomenal. As it stands, this was The Silence, and I hope you enjoy it if you do choose to read it, and I hope you like this review of it as well. As I said before, this is a re-review because I did review this on my previous channel before I switched over, but I just thought I'd give it another shot and just see if I have those same feelings about it. And for the most part, I do. So yeah, I really like it. Thank you very much, and goodbye. See you.